Hey everybody, welcome back to Night Shift Forge. I'm Michael Rangel, and today is going to be a little bit different of an episode. I want to take you through a production run of some items I have to make for an order and how I do that as efficiently as possible. And I also want to have this be a follow-up to the forge making video, which is testing out my forge. I made a few modifications after the initial video, trying to make the burners burn more efficiently. It may come down to it that I may just have to build my own burners, but this is kind of going to be that test. Because I'm going to have the forge on for a while, and I want to be able to see how it actually reacts, with air ratios and all that. With my doors open, air flowing through, just to make sure that I have exactly what I need when it comes to the forge, and make sure that it can get hot enough to forge weld. Because I may be going back to doing some forge welding in the near future. So we're going to be making S hooks and maybe meat hooks if I can fit it in the video and this doesn't get too long. But we'll start with the meat hooks, which is basically just an S hook with points on the end. So I'll start off by showing you exactly what I do for kind of a production run, and I'll do a kind of a small batch production run for you guys. So let's get the steel, let's get to the bandsaw, and let's get to it. All right, so I have about 6 feet of 3/8 round rod right here, and we're going to cut it up into 12-inch chunks. Now, the first thing is cutting steel can be kind of tedious if you don't have it set up right. So the first thing you want to do is, I'm using my Portaband, and you want to make sure that you get a perfect measurement each time. So if you have any way to measure it out, I'm going to cut one piece out and then clamp it down and kind of use that as a guide for the other pieces. So I'm going to get the first one in, so measure it out using measuring tape, cut it up, clamp it to my Portaband, and then we'll get the rest of them cut out, and we'll get through this. I have 2 of these, so 12 feet of rod through pretty quickly. So once you get going, it cut it up pretty quick. I think it was only a couple minutes and I got everything cut up exactly the way I wanted it to be. Next thing, and that's kind of the key when you're doing production stuff, is take everything in steps. Do everything at once. So cut all the steel out would be first step. Next step is going to be get all of the tapers down on both sides. So I'm going to taper one side, flip it around, taper the other, and then do that for everything first before we actually take it to the bending jig and make the actual S. And that will be kind of the most efficient ways. I'm kind of talking you through it. So everything is break it down into smaller pieces and do something all at once to all the pieces you're trying to. And what you'll notice is that you actually get more efficient and quicker as you do it. First, finishing one S hook, one meat hook all the way through, and then starting on the next one. You might, you won't be as consistent if you do it that way. So let's get the forge going, and let's see how the burners are working. The flames are starting to get a little bit more consistent. I had to open up my garage door to make sure it was getting enough air. It seems like airflow might be an issue here. So it may just not be getting enough air. So I might have to tweak the direction of where the air intake is for this burner. And there it goes. Yep, having issues. All right, so I had to turn it down to 1 burner. I think there's a issue with the air to flame or air to fuel ratio that I can't really control with these burners, unfortunately. It seems to be decently steady, so I'll try and get some work done on this. Then after it gets a bit hotter in there, then I'll try the other burner and see where we're at. So, one of the things that I use when I do production work is I like containers so that I don't have to do as much movement. So for me, I'm using a metal paint container, paint catch, whatever it is. And I like metal just because if it's hot, I can throw it in there and just like leave it there. So I'm gonna unload these, start getting them in the forge so that I can start doing them one by one, and then they'll be deposited in there, ready for the next step. And they can cool down in there, which is nice, you know. So, and I have stools set up so next to my work, so that I don't have to actually move that far. Less movement is less movement, and you know, is faster. So let's let's actually finally get some steel in the fire and start banging on some hot metal. All right, so I got the first batch done in with one side, tapering one side relatively quickly, about 15-20 minutes to do all of them. Some of them I had to go back just to tweak them, and so they had to reheat. But as I continued through them, they were actually getting a lot easier to do, and I was getting a lot quicker. So the more you do these things, the more you repeat the same motions and the same actions, you're going to get better and more efficient at it. And that's what I was saying. Now, as far as the forge is going, I have so far only been able to turn on one burner. I think there's an airflow issue, and right now I have the air intake in line because I was having an issue with them beforehand. But the fact that I cannot regulate how much air is going into these is making me really not enjoy these burners because the way my garage is set up, the way my shop is set up, there's either a lot of airflow in one direction, inconsistent airflow, or there is no airflow, it's dead. So I don't really have control over the airflow, which is unfortunate. But the next thing I have to do for the hooks is going to be taper the other side. So I should expect anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to finish these, do these sides, and then we will go to the actual bending of them, which I have a jig. There is, and I'll put a link in the description or something to show you that video, because that jig has been just beautiful. It's been the best thing. They're about 1-inch blocks of steel welded to some angle iron, and it fits in my vise, really speeding up bending, so I don't have to just do some guesswork around the anvil. But I'm getting ahead of myself like I usually do. Let's get the other ends inside the forge and get those tapered as well. Alright, so next stage, I switched out the pan for something a little bit bigger of a metal bucket, just so I can have it in two places. I can have a canister in two places. Okay. So this right here is my bending jig that I use for my meat hooks. These are about 1.5 inches wide, and they make the perfect radius bend that allows the hooks to actually hook onto pretty much anything. You know, from a 2x4, which these ones are actually used for. So, very useful. Check my video out if you want to know how to make it. It's very simple. Like I said, welds the diameter you want onto some angle iron, put it in your vise, and boom, you have a beautiful bending jig. So, let's put it into use right now. And I am putting a bit of the... There we go. Ooh. I should have. There we go. Oh no. So, I usually will get a hammer, and while it's still hot, and then you use it to kind of just go back and forth. I don't want it perfectly parallel. I want it to have a little bit of an, I want it to point a little bit outwards to make it easier to hang things onto. There we go. There we go. That one's done. Alright, so bit of update on the forge. I can only have one burner on, else they piddle out and they're very inefficient. However, the efficiency of one burner, yeah, I can have a really good flame at about 5 psi, which is really better than the rest of them that I've had. Now, I think one of the issues is that the air intakes are in line with each other, so when one is on, it's probably stealing air from the other. I'm going to turn them perpendicular to each other and see if that helps. If it doesn't, I'm probably going to build my own. Now, so I'm going to turn off the forge, twist those around, but not before I finish with the hooks that are in the forge right now. And then I'll fire it back up. We'll do the rest of it. Unfortunately, this is taking a little bit longer just because I'm also testing the forge out. But this simple project was a great time to actually do this because these things are easy and don't require a lot of finicky heat. So let me finish bending these out. Get those back. Get the air intakes into perpendicular, not in line with each other, and I'll be right back. All right. So now the burners, the air intake are perpendicular to each other. I think that's how I originally had them. I'm not sure. Maybe when because I switched the connection to a weld and it's just holding a lot better. So maybe when I was twisting it back on, I got lazy and just did it in line. That's possible, it's me. So let's get this started and see if we see any difference with the flame. I will start with both burners on and see if there is enough to actually have both burners on. All right, so everything's on and both burners are actually burning beautifully. I'm thinking that the air was definitely being taken from one of them as I had them both on, which is why I was only able to have one on. I am feeling the heat, and it is actually generating a lot of heat. I'm thinking that with the modifications I've made, welding the coupling, making sure the burners didn't stick out from underneath the bricks and make sure they were recessed a bit, might have helped. So hopefully I don't have to make my own burners, but if you guys wanted to see that, please do something put something in the comments and let me know, because I wouldn't mind making my own burners just to test it out. But I think it is okay now. All right, so note to self for anyone who wants to build their own. Make sure the burner air intakes, if you're doing it Venturi style, are not in line. All right, one thing I've noticed, another update, as I'm trying to heat up the next batch of hooks to start bending, is that this thing is requiring a lot of airflow. So I need to have my big door open, make sure there's enough airflow coming from all sides, because this thing wants a lot of air, which is kind of surprising. So that's a little concerning. Might still, just something I thought that was interesting and would be worth noting if you were thinking about getting these burners. So I'm not sure how outside would work, but so far, as long as they're not in line, it works a lot better. And the flames seem to be a lot more consistent after the modifications I made. So, all right, hopefully this steel is ready and I can bend and finish these meat hooks. All right, so you kind of got a sense of how the movements go. Get everything in the forge, and you're kind of breaking this up by one process, one process, one process, one process. And that is going to be the most efficient way you can do this. Cut everything all at once. Don't have, because every step you take is another bit of time that you can make more efficient. So the least amount of movements you can make at one time makes things more efficient and a lot faster. I could have probably had all, 12 of these, 13 of these that I made, done in about an hour or two. I sell them for about, 10, 15 bucks a pop. And so that makes a very good return profit, because you want to make sure your time is the most important thing. So you want to make sure you're using your time efficiently, especially when you're making things for shows and things like that, or even for a custom order like these are. This will actually bring down your prices and make you more competitive the more efficient you are. Now, if you're doing it as a hobby, do one all the way through. It doesn't matter. But if you're doing this for sale, this would probably be a better way to go about it. Make all of your movements a lot more efficient, and eventually get your homemade forge working optimally. And that's what we're working on today. All right, so now I've taken my bending jig out of my vise and we're gonna move on to straightening. I have some of them heating up right now. So what I'm gonna do is, on my little plinth, little work area right here, I'm gonna make sure I have tongs and things ready. And that's something I didn't mention before. Have your tools in a place that are easy accessible from where you're gonna work. I make that mistake all the time where I just misplace something because I'm walking around doing other things. But it does help with efficiency if you can keep that in mind. Make sure to have all your tools ready. Here's my tongs. Those are what I'm gonna use. I might have to use these guys right here, just to really get things in line. So first thing I wanna do is make sure this is straight. Then we'll get all of this in line, making sure. Making sure everything is in line. Flip it over, and if I'm quick enough, I can do this all in one heat. And you don't need to see the rest of it. I'll be right back with kind of the final thoughts on all of this, and anything interesting I find out about the forge as I'm working with it. right, so we have that all done. All the straightening is done. The last thing we need to do is put the finish on it, which I'm going to use beeswax like usual. It's food safe and is honestly really good as a finish, especially for things like this. So I'm going to clean these up and I'll just heat them up, put them in front of the forge for a few seconds, and then rub beeswax on it, and then we'll be done with these. Okay, so we finished up with our meat hooks, and yeah, they're ready to be shipped out and to go to who they need to go. I do have to make a few meat hangers also for them that I made in a video earlier, which I'll link somewhere. Also, the forge I'm making, I don't think I'm happy with the burners. I'm having a lot of issues with enough air getting in, so I'm going to do some research, figure out whether I want to do a forced air ribbon burner or do a different style of Venturi burner. I might do some experimentation here on YouTube. If you guys want to see different types, me build different types of burners, put it in the comments, you know, do all that, like, commenting, subscribing, all that. But I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Night Shift Forge, and God bless.